In this video, we're going to paint a bokeh effect background using acrylics, and we're also going to paint this cute Valentine card. Hi, I'm Marion Dutton and I love to paint in oil, acrylics and watercolour, a real mixed bag of goodies. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you and you like a little variety in your life, then consider subscribing to the channel. Now this painting is based on a reference photo from Pixabay, but if you'd like the tracing or outline for free, then head on over to the MazArt Academy and I'll put a link to that in the description box below. You don't need an account to access all the free classes. Visit MazArtstudio.com and select Explore Classes. From there, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom to where you'll see all the free tutorials. If you click this link, it'll open up and show you all the free things that are available at MazArt Studio Academy. Okay, without further ado, let's jump to the tutorial. I begin by drawing around my mount so I know what area that I'll be working. And I take my canvas paper down onto my drawing board. So this is real canvas, it just comes in a pad form, and I'll put a link to the paper that I'm using in the description box below. It doesn't need any preparation work. You can use oil or acrylic straight on the top of this. It already comes primed. So I'm using acrylic for this fun little project, and the colours I'll be using for our bokeh background are black, crimson and cadmium red. So firstly, we want to block the area in. Before we worry about our bokeh circles, we actually want to have a background. So I'm starting with some black, and I'm using just a soft synthetic brush and a nice flip-flop stroke. I give the brush a quick wipe and go into some crimson, sort of working wet into wet. Just blending those colours very, very loosely. And then picking up a little bit of that cadmium red and working towards the corners. So it's darker in the centre and just a little bit lighter as we come to the outer edges. I'm going over the lines, over my pencil lines, to make sure that I get all the area covered. And then when I put the mount on top, none of the background will show through. And once you're happy with your background, run that hairdryer over it and dry it off. So now we're going to begin working on our bokeh background, and I'm using a template. And I begin with my dullest colour, so I'm going to start with the alizarin crimson, and I'm adding just a little touch of gloss medium. This is gloss acrylic medium, and that will just thin the paint down slightly. So the idea behind this is we're going to start off quite dull and slowly build up our lighter areas. By adding that medium, it keeps that alizarin crimson, which is already a transparent paint anyway, but it keeps it even more transparent. And we're going to keep drying this between the layers. So I'll start with this colour first, and then I'll run that hairdryer over it and start adding yet another layer. I'm adding a second layer of that alizarin crimson. Again, just allowing all of these circles to overlap. Just keep working on those layers and keep using that hairdryer in between those layers so your circles don't end up smudged. Once I've got those background layers in there, I start using cadmium red, which is a little bit more opaque, and you will get a stronger, brighter red. Now you'll notice here that I start to abandon the circles in favour of just using my finger. I'm finding that I'm getting a much softer mark, which I really like. So at this point I introduce a little bit of cadmium orange, and that's so that I can get an even brighter light. Again, allowing those layers to overlap and varying the sizes of your circle as well. And sometimes I'm using the template, the circle template, and then other times I'm just using my finger for a slightly softer mark. Constantly using that hairdryer to dry in between those layers. And as I develop the painting, the bokeh circles get smaller and a little bit brighter. And again, using my finger to sort of push that paint around and constantly drying between those layers. So here you'll see me going back over a couple of those brighter areas with a little bit of crimson, just to kind of tone them down a little bit. So again, you can build these layers up, adding light on dark and dark on top of light, and just adjusting this until you've got something you're happy with. So here I've taken my tracing and I'm rubbing a little bit of white pastel over the back of that so that it stands out when I transfer the tracing. And then using a coloured pen, either a blue or a red, you can go over your outline and transfer the image. This is a reference photo from Pixabay, but I've turned this into a very convenient pencil sketch for you guys, and that will be available on the MazArt Academy for free. And once you've transferred your image, you can just wipe away any excess pastel dust. Okay, so we're going to begin blocking this little mouse in, and I'm starting in the eyes with some black. We'll mix a nice fleshy colour with some white, burnt sienna. And into that we'll add a little alizarin crimson. And again, I'm just blocking in. Adding a little extra pink and sienna. Add a second layer if you need to get a little better coverage. And we'll use that same colour to block in around the ears. So I'm going to use a mixture of burnt sienna and a little raw sienna and a small amount of white. And we'll use this to block the mouse in. Again, we're still not at any detail stages. So in this section here, it's a little bit darker. So I'm going to go back into our mixture, add a little more burnt sienna. So a little bit more of that burnt sienna and a tiny bit of burnt umber. So now I'm going to stay with this slightly darker mixture and add some shadows, keeping my strokes very, very loose, adding extra burnt umber if I need a little bit more shading. For the white fur, I'm going to start with some white, add a little touch of black to that for a nice grey tone and a little blue. For a nice blue-grey tone. Adding just a little water to help that paint spread. We'll be working in layers. Picking up just a little more black so I can get some more shading. And so for the love heart, we will block in with some crimson to begin with. I'm going to add a little cad red to that. So now I'm going back with a slightly brighter white and continuing to build up those layers. If you do need to use a hairdryer to dry in between, that's fine. Just keep building up those layers. Here I'm using just a tiny little hair-like stroke. So I've added a little extra white to that flesh tone that we made earlier, just to start adding some highlights to the ears. I'll use that same colour as well on the feet and the hands. Working on the face now, just add in those highlights by just adding a little touch of white to your original mix and just slowly building up those lights. When you're working with acrylics, you always want to layer your lighter tones on top of your dark tones. So always start with your dark colours and then gradually build up to your lighter mixtures. Once I've got my lights in, I've realised I've gone a little bit too bright, so I go back now to a little bit of that burnt umber and start adding in some shadows. The beauty of working with acrylics is you can just keep adding those layers. Back to the love art now, and I'm adding another layer of cadmium red to really start to brighten up the colour on that love heart. I'm making it just a little bit bigger than I see in the reference photo as well. The outer rim of the eyes, I'm using some blue and a little white just to get a lovely, nice reflective light. And then going in with the titanium white, we're going to put a little sparkle in there. Here I'm using some black just to tidy up around the eyes and really add some detail. Then into that white to put the little sparkle on. So into some white now to add a little bit of a rim light, and this will really help pull our little mouse away from that background. I'm really sort of tapping this on so that it's not a solid line. I want to keep it a little bit soft, and even using my finger to smudge things. Now I feel like that's a little too bright just as white, so I go back over that white with a little bit of cadmium red to give a really nice glow behind our mouse. Here I've switched to a bristle brush now, and once again I'm putting yet another layer on there just to add a little bit more detail, and also that bristle brush will give it a slightly softer effect. Just keep working on those layers. Switching to a liner brush now, I thin the paint down with some water, using initially sort of a light colour and then going over that with some black. You want those lines to be nice and thin. And here I'm picking out just a couple of areas where I can highlight. Because it's Valentine's, I'm going to add a little bit of glitter to our love art. So I've wet the area with some more cadmium red, so a slightly thicker cadmium red area. And then into that I'm using ultra fine red glitter. And if I just move the card around, you can just about make that out. And here's the finished picture, and I'll show you next how I put the card together. So I start with a picture mount, which you can pick up quite cheaply, and I cut 2 pieces of card to that same size. I lay both cards together and place some masking tape down the centre but on both sides, and this is so that I can form a hinge for the card. Now, I was given some lovely crafting papers and been wanting to know what to do with them. So this project is ideal for them. So I glue on the inside of the card this lovely crafting paper. I cut 2 complementary sides as well, and I use a PVA glue just to glue these down. And I also cut a little piece to cover the hinge at the back as well. For the inside, I cut out these lovely decorative squares, and again, just use PVA glue to stick those on the inside, and that's just so I can write my greeting on the inside. And for the back, I have some lovely cutouts that I'm able to glue on. And again, these were all gifted to me. I'm not really a crafter, but I had this box of goodies and I thought it would be nice to make a lovely Valentine's card and use those up. Next, I cut out my painting. And once again, taking the PVA glue and covering the entire back of the canvas with the PVA. And I'm sticking my painting to the back of the card. And again, using PVA, I glue the back of the mount board and stick that on the top. Now this is all quite thick, so you will have to put something like a heavy book on the top of this until everything is all glued down, that glue has dried up. And here's the finished card, and I had quite a lot of fun making this card for Valentine's Day, and I hope you guys do as well. I really do hope you've enjoyed painting this and having a little bit of fun as much as I did. Now, I'm not really a crafter in terms of card making or anything like that, but I really did have quite a lot of fun with this project, and I hope you guys do too. Remember, if you are getting value from these lessons and you are enjoying this channel, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe and all that good stuff. And I'll see you again in the next video.